In this IAM lab, we're going to walk through creating a Database Administrators or DBA group, which only has access to select database resources. We're then going to create a user and add it into that DBA group. That user will inherit all the permissions that we gave to the group. We'll then log into the web console with the DBA user and verify the DBA user's limitations. Before you begin this lab, make sure that you've created a cloud account with AWS. We also highly suggest reviewing the IAM presentations. There will be no cost for this exercise, as IAM is 100% free. If you've not yet, please go ahead and log into the AWS terminal. Once you're logged in, click on IAM under Deployment Management. We'll first create a group. Let's click on Groups on the left navigation and create New Group. Let's give the group name DBA and push Continue. There are many different ways to create an IAM policy, but probably the easiest is Policy Generator. Select Policy Generator and push Select. Here you can choose from a drop-down of resources. We're going to choose RDS, and then you can choose all the actions that you want to allow for this policy. Here we're going to allow all actions. So let's click the top and add the statement. Here you can see that we're allowing RDS star on all RDS resources. Let's also add DynamoDB and choose all actions. The web GUI here is kind of quirky, and we have to put in the star ourselves and push Add Statement. So now we've allowed this group all actions on all resources for DynamoDB and RDS. Let's push Continue. And reviewing the policy, that's exactly what we see here. There's Dynamo, there's RDS. Let's push Continue. Only after I push Create Group will this group be created. Let's go ahead and push it now. Excellent. So we've got our group created. Let's go ahead and create a user. Let's push the Create User button. And although we can enter up to 5 names here, let's only choose a single. Let's say John Smith has joined our organization, and this is how we provision user accounts. Let's go ahead and push Create. Although we won't use them, this user's been given security credentials. You would want to download these at this point and keep them in a safe place if this user was going to sign API requests later. We're only going to log into the web GUI, so we won't really need these. Let's go ahead and close our window. So we've created John Smith now, but he's in no groups. Let's go ahead and add him in one. Let's click his name, bringing up the detailed view down below. Let's go ahead and expand that a bit. And we see that this user doesn't belong to any groups. Let's go ahead and add him to the DBA group, simply by checking the box and pushing Add to Group. Great. So we now see he's in the DBA users group. Let's go ahead and create a web GUI login for John Smith. Let's click on Security Credentials and go to Manage Password. We'll assign a custom password. Let's keep it simple for this exercise and just use the exact same password as his username. So capital JOHN, capital SMITH, and confirm that. And push Apply. Excellent. This is also where we would sign John up for multi-factor authentication and signing certificates and so forth. John is only going to be interacting with AWS via the web GUI, but in order to log into IAM, we need a special URL that's created per account. To get this URL, let's go up to Dashboard. And we see that URL down here. Let's go ahead and copy this URL into our copy and paste buffer and log out of our current account. Let's paste that login URL back into our browser. It's important to note here we're logging into IAM, and we see a note of that up at the top. We also don't see the AWS account ID when we're logging in with a master account. So this is a sign that we're logging in with an IAM account. Let's go ahead and use John's username and password to log him in. Great. So we now see that we're logged in as John Smith. Now we've locked John's access down to only RDS and DynamoDB. But before we check that he does have access to those, let's make sure he doesn't have access anywhere we don't expect. He shouldn't have access to EC2. Let's verify that. And here we see messages that he's not allowed really to do anything in here, which makes sense. Let's now see if he has access to S3. And he does not. Although he's been able to log into the web GUI, seems like we've locked his access down pretty good. Let's try one more just to be sure. Let's take a look at SQS. And here we see that John has no access to SQS either. Well, let's verify now that he does have access to what we expect. He should have access to RDS. Let's go ahead and choose RDS here. And here we see that it looks like he does have access. If he didn't have access, he wouldn't be able to get this far. So it looks like we're good. Let's see if he also has access to DynamoDB. Great, it looks like he's got access here too. So we've created a user and locked his permissions down very, very granularly. We've also given him one of our 5,000 IAM slots. Remember, we have a hard limit on this and we can't change that. For the moment, let's go ahead and log John Smith out. I want to show you the URLs and how they stick to you depending on the last way that you logged into the console. So if you remember, we last logged in via IAM. The fact that we last logged in via IAM is stored in our cookie. And here you see that when we click Login to Account, we're directed to the user's IAM login. Would invite you also to explore IAM. Feel free to poke around. Try Android or iOS MFA. They're completely free. You can further try to lock the DBA account down to only certain types of operations, such as create versus delete. You could create a DynamoDB table and attach an explicit deny to DBA user policy to it, or try to create an EC2 role with explicit access to DynamoDB and launch an EC2 into that role from the web console.